Hello and welcome to the making of the thumbnail for Arbok, our many coils delight. I'm not sure if I showed this little quick bit in my previous videos. It just went by in a flash. But whenever I do my physical sketches, I take a picture of it because I draw them in batches of 6 or so, and then I take a picture of it and I send it to myself over Discord, and the size dimensioning is usually pretty huge, so I have to resize it smaller since these are primarily for when I post them on Fur Affinity, because Fur Affinity requires a thumbnail, but they're very small thumbnails, so I have to scale them down initially. I usually do that part first before I start recording it, but got to see a quick glimpse of it there. I usually try to make the largest size about 300 pixels, so very small. But so starting with the giant thick coils, when I did Ekans, I typically with most of the Pokemon I try to personify, humify them, make them anthropomorphize them. That's the word. I try to anthropomorphize them, but since the Arbok episode specializes in the listener getting wrapped in the coils, I wanted to obviously emphasize the coils. So I have them being the primary focus. I did thicker lines cascading down to try to give the perspective of you're like underneath looking up from the thickest bottom coil. I feel like I could improve my perspective work with those at some point if I practice a little more. Unfortunately, there's not too many more snake Pokemon I'm gonna be drawing. I've already done Ekans and Survivor. There's the Snivy final form and Milotic, but some of those I wouldn't draw with coils, so I'll just have to practice that in my own time at some point. And then I have the side profile for Arbok to have it. I think it's a little more dynamic, and you always see Arbok head up, so you see the front of the hood, but I wanted them kind of bursting from the coils or rising from them. Funnily enough, I actually had to use screenshots from Pokemon Snap to get a side profile, and also a particular Pokemon card I think gave me a side profile shot, because Arbok very broad from front, but very skinny from side. So did all my outlines, did the big block colors, totally doesn't look like a pile of earthworms right now. And moving on to my signature Ditto eye, I gave it the slit pupil just because honestly I have a weak spot for reptile eyes. I think they're really cool, so I wanted to add that. And then kind of the little ooh curl smile. This drawing overall took about 45 minutes. There were a couple little pauses here and there. I feel like my drawing time is definitely kind of narrowing down between half an hour, maybe an hour if I'm really dragging a bit or it's really intricately detailed. So drawing the scary eyes on the breast, the hood. I guess that would just be the hood for the snake. I know like some parts of it are distinct. I don't know if snakes technically have a chest. I know they have the underbelly, and there is technically a segment that is called the tail, but I'm not quite studied in them. I went with the darker, paler color palette, the more Gen 1 Pokemon card palette for Arbok. Partly because I didn't want it too flashy, but also I think I had a little bit of bias. I definitely was born in more the first gen era, so it just spoke to me a little more. Because I already got this vibrant pink going out the wazoo, so I didn't really want everything to be popping. And then just blocking in my Ditto pink. And then, yeah, I don't always add shading to my thumbnails, because, again, I try to keep them, excuse me as I shifted my chair, I keep them pretty simple, because the art is not the point for me. The point is I need a thumbnail to represent the audio work, which is the point. But I still I do still enjoy the medium, so I do put in effort where I just feel like it would be fun. But I definitely feel the undershading for the hood is a little necessary to give it that depth. I also will give some shading to the coils a bit later, because otherwise it just looks really flat. And again, especially since it is going to be so small on Fur Affinity, it is going to be teeny tiny thumbnail, like opening your file on the computer small. Or opening the menu to see all your files is going to be like that small. So I really need it to pop a little bit so you don't just gloss over. And playing with the shading on the coils, I decided to go with a kind of underlit for the coils. I know it. I'm sure there are more advanced artists that are kind of critiquing my lighting and shading and whatnot, but I just go with what I feel looks pretty nice to me. Always doing the method of having transparent color, and then I just gradient it with a eraser, shading it in, kind of chipping away at it. Give it that round feeling. It's also Arbok is a pretty smooth Pokemon. Not much scale detail work. So yeah, having the majority of the shadow on the top of the coil and then a minority underneath for that overcast. And again, I had done Ekans before, so I decided it was only right to do Arbok later, the big sister, as I portray her, curious of who swooned her little sister. The Ekans episode was more about the swallowing, and so this one was a little more about the constricting. Doing the zoom out so I can my equivalent of taking a step back, because again, I have to be mindful with how small it's going to be, so determining how good it looks from quote-unquote afar. It's also, it amuses me every time when I have something in it like this, and I look at the sketch, and I'm like, oh, this will be so simple, and then I take up to 45 minutes on it. I do that with the next one too, because when I color these, I try to do like 2 or 3 at a time. It typically ends up being 2. And with the one after this, it's like, oh, it'll be so simple. Proceeds to take close to an hour. It's deceptive, especially when you're a sucker for details. So here I'm playing with my shine work more again, do a translucent-ish white, similar to the shading, put it over top, and then just use the eraser to smudge it in. I'm playing with the break in the shine, playing more with the location of it, because typically, since these are all kind of canonically my Ditto OC character, they're all essentially secret slime girls, so I just put the shine wherever I like hyper shine it. But I am slowly but surely with every one of these trying to challenge myself a little more each time. And so with some things, even when it's long and perfectly smooth, if it's got a bend or a bulge somewhere, it's not going to be a perfect straight shine line. There's going to be breakups in that. So I experimented with that here a bit. Adding the little bloop tongue. Little bloop to the danger noodle. And just adding a little undershadow, a little shine. Again, that detail is going to be like a grain of rice, barely, like maybe half a grain of rice on the screen, but I can't help but add detail. So working with the background, taking the original purple and a darker color, giving it a little bit of color oomph. I tried, that first effect I had tried was supposed to be a spiral, but again, because it's so small, it doesn't render as well. If I wanted to, I could have just drawn a spiral and then blurred it out, but I think this works just as fine. It balances with the pink pretty good. And then I pop my DDD in there, and now I'm trying to find a text style that I would like for the numbers, because I started playing with trying to match the text style with the Pokemon. Turns out I don't have anything that really screams snake, so I went with the base typeface that I use when my default typeface, I guess you could say. So I initially made it yellow, and I didn't like how it kind of disappears, so I decided to get a little cheeky playful and give it the orange outline similar to the eye pattern on the hood. And I think it really helped it pop a little bit. Even if you can't see it too well, you see it better than before. So it doesn't blend quite as badly. And there we are, and that is the Arbok thumbnail. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, honestly. I've definitely been comparing a lot with how much I've improved. There's a trend on X right now, where it's to get to this, I had to survive this. Comparing old artwork, like really old children artwork, to your current work. And I'm honestly very proud with how I've been improving, even if they're really simple little things. And that is about it for Arbok. If you would like to have early access to seeing these art, have early access to the videos, to see the full version of the episode that this was made for, you can see it on my Subscribe Star. You can find my link tree in the description below. And thank you very much for watching my process. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.